Hello there, this is Rom Wills coming back at you with yet another video. The key to getting smart women. Now, let me first define what I'm calling smart women. And this don't necessarily mean a smart mouth or anything, but these women, they're thinking more than the average woman. They're more rational. You could have a conversation, like a thinking man, an intellectual man could have a conversation with them. And it's a large group. It could be anything from a nerdy girl or somebody who's, a nerdy girl or intellectual, like a professor, a philosophy professor, or a professional who have to use their brain to actually make money. Those type of women, they're more in their heads. They're more in their heads. Now, there's two things in general that you have to deal with these type of women. Two things in general. One has to do with them being in their head, and the other one has to do with getting them out of their heads. This is very important, because sometimes, let's just be real, sometimes you got those pretty nerds, those pretty nerdy girls, or they might be awkward, or they could have a conversation with you. Like, I knew this young lady who had been a exotic dancer, but she could probably tell you how to hack a computer. I can't call her name. She's the type who could figure out how to hack this account and everything, but she real cool though. I remember she was telling me, say, Rom, you gotta get a Mac. Forget those PCs, you gotta get a Mac. Highly intelligent, like that type of woman, they just highly intelligent. Yes, women have that, in general are more emotional than men, but all of them ain't like just some dumb like airheads or something. You got that group of women. In fact, those who are familiar with when I talk about the house of the woman, these are mostly the seated hawk types and also the treasure chest types. These women make their money, or they live their lives. They thinking more than average. And, if they got a nice body and all that, we gonna go for them. But you can't hit them with like some of the same stuff that you might just hit like a party girl with. Those are two different ones. Like the party girls, you honestly just need to look good and be willing to party. You gotta have that fun side. These are more serious women. These are the type of women, if you go on a date with them, you can go to a bookstore. And I'll just say straight up, these are the type of women I deal with more. More who got a brain to them. You can have a serious like conversation with, either a business conversation or even a philosophical conversation with them. Now, the first way of dealing with them, you got to be able to have that philosophical or deep conversation with them. See, one of the things is a lot of men can't hit a woman on just an intellectual thing. And when I say intellectual, like thinking, can you stimulate her mind on that level? And there's no shame. Every man has a different thing. Like some men, they're more, about working with their hands. These are the builders. These are the ones who keep everything running. Some men are more the party men. That party girl love them. Everybody has that different thing. But if you want to deal with that more smart woman, you got to hit her on that level. You got to say something deep or anything. And not necessarily start off. Let me be clear on that. Like when, they can laugh and all of that when you first meet them. Oh yeah, have some fun. But then when they start going deep or say something about politics or something like that, like a deep something, you got to be able to go there with them. Because that's the one thing they're looking for. Yeah, they looking for a good looking guy and stuff. Or whatever's good looking to them, got the body that they like. But you still got to hit them up here. It's rare that women like that will deal with somebody that they would consider dumb or not thinking. Rare. Not saying it's impossible, but very rare. And even then, it'd have to be a situation where it's purely sex. Like they probably wouldn't want to be out with a guy. And you'll see it. Seriously, that's one thing. A lot of guys want to think, oh, these women ain't thinking. No, you got some smart women out there. Now, getting them, you got to be smart yourself, like legitimately smart. You got to hit them with some new knowledge or something, or be able to roll with them. Like I remember one woman, she was fine. She was from Argentina, fine. But we talk politics. And I was just like, yeah. You got to hit them on that level. Now, remember, I said there were 2 levels to this. Okay, when you connecting to them personality-wise, because remember, if you're going to look, when you're connecting with a woman, period, whether she's smart or not, she has to have some physical attraction to you, but she also has to have a personality attraction. Some people might call it a mouthpiece or whatever, and that's part of your mouthpiece too. All it is just you clicking with the woman personality-wise. So when you have that smart woman, yes, you have to first connect with her head. But then when you have sex with her, you got to take her out of her head. Because sometimes they can be so in their heads, they're not really enjoying sex. Look, I'm going to tell you something now. When you're having sex with a woman and she's too much in her head, she's not going to have an orgasm. She's in her head. She's thinking about stuff. In fact, she might be that type of smart woman, be trying to think, oh, okay, all right, he doing this. Okay, this is how I'm supposed to respond and everything. You know, they thinking too much. Like if a woman's having sex, you've had sex with her for 15 minutes and she can think about her grocery list or something like that, or she's coherent and talking, you got some more work to do. Like if you can last 15 minutes, that's another conversation. But if you in there and say, hey, baby, how this feeling? And she's like, oh yeah, it's great. It feels like a certain waterfalls and all. If she could be that coherent, oh, you got some more work to do. You want to get her to the point you having sex with her. You say, hey, baby, how this feels? She's like, got it there. Look, and I'm serious about that. I'm serious. So that's the interesting thing. It's like on one level, you gotta keep them in their heads. You gotta stimulate that brain. And in fact, I'm gonna get into that, another thing about that in a second, but you gotta stimulate that brain. But then when you have sex with them, when you're dealing with them on that purely sexual level, you gotta take them out of their brain, get them in their bodies. Trust me, you get that woman like that, boom, she ain't going nowhere. Because think about it, that's the best of both worlds for her. Somebody who could satisfy her sexually and she can have a conversation with. Yeah, that's the something. And also too, now I said there was another point I had to get in with that. One thing about intellectual type of women, smart women, they don't just go for any type of guy, even if he's fine. Like, okay, remember what I always say. It. You have those women, you know, they'll see a guy, he's attractive to them, whatever they consider attractive. And then, you know, they were like, oh, he was fine until he opened his mouth. That type of woman. See, one of the things with that is they do have certain guards on their full expression of sexuality. See, one thing, intellectual women, smart women, they tend to have a level of repression. They tend to. There's always some exceptions, but they tend to. Basically, they have some fences up. They have some defenses up. And their sex, releasing themselves sexually is more conditional. The conditional is she needs to be able to talk with you. In most cases, there's always going to be an exception. But in most cases, that's the exception. That's the criteria. They'll say, okay, they'll get off, they'll have fun, they'll let themselves go, but the guy has to be smart himself. He has to be able to carry on an intellectual conversation. So, like you got a lot of guys, they more on an intellectual tip and everything, and sometimes they'll focus too much on the party girl. That's not really your woman. Yeah, she fine and all, but unless you that party at 2, you might be that type who's more into serious conversations. Ain't no shame in that. Deal with the smart woman, because at the end of the day, even though the party girl, and you know the one ain't into all of that, she got some airhead in her, yeah, she can be fun, pleasurable and everything. But one thing about the smart woman, it's rare that they throwing it out there. When I say throwing it, yeah, they had some boyfriends, they've had sex. They probably all women have had one good one night stand. All women, you know, just take that. Just take that as a general rule. And if a woman says she hasn't, she's being honest, she's the exception. But one thing about the smart woman, they tend to be pickier about who they get sex with, have sex with, deal in a relationship with. And usually you got to pass that first fence. The first gate up is this man smart? Can he have a conversation? You know, once you pass that, and then they'll let their defenses down. That's the first defense. You know, yeah, you can be whatever. You can be fine, whatever. But they will look for that. Indeed, sometimes women, some of those, they so much into the intellectual side of a man. They'll let other stuff go. He don't have to be like 6'4" or whatever, or looking like a fashion model as long as he's decent. That's why I say. So you understand something with different women just in general. All of them have a different criteria. All of them do. You know, you can't just say, oh, well, yeah, he's this or that. He'll get, all the women. No, he'll get some, but that's an important thing. Like when I talked about, just as an aside, when I talked about like women who might be more business orientated, like have a business, they thinking about money. The type of guy they want is the same guy, a type of guy who's like, ain't working, don't have any ambition, ain't doing anything. Even if he's fine, ain't gonna typically turn them on, typically. Like I said, there's always an exception. And you know, they might deal with them for some quick sex. But let's just be real out here though. 99% of the men out here are not on that 1% level, just turning a woman on just for sex. Let's just be real with it. So if you're a regular man, you gotta have something that appeals specifically to that woman. You gotta have something that appeals specifically to her. In fact, in the next one, I'm gonna talk about the women, the type of man that the mommy types want. I'm gonna talk about that in the next one. All right? So anyway, that's all I have for today, y'all. And I'll get back with y'all later. Peace and blessings.